"They won't find us," I reassured Schlesi. "Our hideout is perfect. Just don't sing." When you are 10 years old, you have spent most of your life trying to hide. For me, personally, the search for a hideout started just before birth, when my mother's womb turned out not to be the safe place everyone thought it was. There were loud noises, angry voices, and a number of violent up or down heavals that tossed me like a baseball from one side to another of my humid shelter. The tube that connected me to the spaceship was sometimes filled with matter that repelled me, though I did, eventually, learn to like chicken livers, but never the cooked onions they tended to be smothered in. I can recall in detail the fetus menu that ranged in truth from the sublime peach jam to nausea-inducing matter like beet borscht. This was after the big war that could have eliminated even the idea of my existence, leave alone the gustatory whims of a developing fetal brat. I suppose that I should be grateful. The Russian soldiers drank all my mother's cologne, and finding a chicken was like finding a Nazi. Plenty before the war, invisible for a year after. The cobbler called it the year without chickens, and it sounded worse than aerial bombing. Eastern European cooking of the era was heavy on chicken cooked in onions and sunflower oil, with flour dumplings, potato soup, leeks, beets, and celery. It is understandable that in addition to becoming a food critic, I became somewhat leery of my habitation, and so an architecture critic in the bargain. As soon as I was freed from the tube and entered the Earth atmosphere, I started searching for a safe place, away from the faces I now knew had made those angry voices, loud noises, and the involuntary gymnastics that made maternal imprisonment unbearable. I will skip the account of the terrible structures, cardboard boxes, the undersides of Biedermeier furniture, the four-poster bed that were safe for a while until they weren't. Unemployed war widows scoured for pennies the homes of the employed. My mother, who worked, engaged Ilse, a crispy Saxon, to look after me. This is what she literally did. She soon found me. She pumped DDT under the bed and furniture and burned the boxes. My next hideout lasted 3 hours. It was in a wooden trunk in the attic. It was filled with volumes of an 1879 Austrian encyclopedia. I removed 10 of them and set them neatly on the floor. There was now enough room for me. I crawled in and closed the trunk lid over my head. The Austrian encyclopedias, still in the box, smelled good and were solid. 3 hours later, Ilse's infallible Saxon sense of propriety found the books on the floor. She lifted the top of the trunk and started to put the heavy tomes on top of me without noticing me. After 2 of the heavy volumes compressed me painfully, I gave a shout that nearly gave Ilse a heart attack. She freed me, slapped me, and I helped her put back the missing volumes, H through K, and was remanded to the general population. I consoled myself with the thought that my sojourn among the encyclopedias had infused me with a great deal of knowledge, useful later in life for finding a better hideout. My second hideout was better, good enough to see me through a great many perils. I found it after I died at the age of 3. A truck full of soldiers was approaching at great speed toward me. I got up from the sidewalk where I had been urging some ants toward the remains of a dead rat and stood at attention. I might have saluted, I can't remember. As the truck barreled past me, one of the soldiers aimed his gun and shot me. I died. This was the first time I died, so I immediately proceeded to find a hideout. A hideout, to be any good, must, first of all, be safe from soldiers. Secondly, it has to be out of reach of firearms. Thirdly, it has to dissuade interested parties from finding me in order to A, not be found, B, shelter me until I was hungry enough to get out at midnight to steal bread, and C, be comfortable enough to bite, scratch, pull hair, and knee anyone who attempted to extract me. My friend Schlesi and I discussed the problem of hideouts for many days before we found the one we now observed the action from. Throughout our discussions, the thought of why we might need to hide never occurred to us. We took it for granted. I find this curious now, but if we didn't ask why then, it would be even more useless now when there is nowhere to hide. The surveillance state would not take notice. That said, I don't think that 10-year-olds are any less clever because more eyes are watching. Our medieval city had been in the surveillance business for its entire history. All the walls had ears, and all the roofs had eyes.